Geometry 1, Chapter 1 Test, Skill 1. You should be able to name from a picture all of the vocabulary from Chapter 1 that we've used. So for example, the first vocabulary word is point. And here's a picture. We have a plane with some points and some lines and some rays, various things on it. To identify a point, you need to look for a dot, a point, with a letter next to it. So for example, here, A has a point right here with a letter next to it. So a point would be point A. Point B is also a point, so is point C, point W, point L, point Q. The only letters here that are not points are T and S. Because notice T is just kind of off by itself here. There's no dot next to it. And S is actually next to the arrow, not a point. So point A is an example. You could also say point W is an example. You also need to be able to identify lines. A line, you're looking for 2 points connected by a line, such as right here, AC. So what we would write is A and C, 2 points on the line with the line symbol on top. Now if you feel so compelled, you could also write it CA with the line symbol on top. That's okay. It doesn't matter. AC or CA are both acceptable and they're both the same line. They're this line right here. The important part is the line symbol on top. We could also focus on the other line, which is over here. It actually has 3 points on it, Q, B, and L, and using any of those 2 points would be acceptable. So you could go LB with a line segment on top, or QL with a line segment on top, or BQ with a line segment on top, or you could flip any of those and say QB, LQ, or BL, as long as the line segment is on top and you're using 2 letters only. The next vocab word is a plane. The plane is essentially the large flat area in the picture. Here it kind of looks like a parallelogram, or maybe like a tilted square or tilted rectangle. The plane has 2 ways to be named. First, you can look for a single letter without a point next to it. So here, a single letter without a point next to it is the point T. So you could actually call it plane T. You can also name a plane with 3 points in the plane as long as they're not collinear points. So here, any 3 points that we pick will work as long as they're in the plane. So we could say plane A, B, C as an example. Could also say plane A, C, W, for example. We can't use the L to name the plane because it's below the plane. We can't use the Q because it's above the plane. But any of those 3 letters from A, B, C, and W are sufficient. Array. Array is part of a line. It starts at a point and then it goes in one direction forever. It looks something kind of like this typically, an arrow essentially. So here we have lots of options. This line over here, line AC, has 2 rays in it. We could have ray AC, or we could have ray CA. Now when we dealt with a line, switching the order of the letters didn't actually change the line. But here it does. Ray AC is the one that starts at A and goes up and to the right forever. Ray CA starts at C and goes down and to the left forever. So they're actually going in opposite directions and they start in different places. We could also use this line over here, line QB, to name some rays. So we could have ray QL or BQ, lots of choices there. And you're good as long as you pick 2 points on the line and you put your ray symbol on top of the letters. The next vocab word, collinear points. Collinear points are 3 or more points that lie on the same line. So for example, the only line here that has 3 or more points is this line right here. L, B, and Q are the collinear points. Another vocabulary word are coplanar points. Coplanar points are points that are on the same plane. So for example here, when we named plane ABC, we named it ABC because A, B, and C were on the same plane. So we could still use A, B, and C as our coplanar points. Please note though that L is not in the plane, it's below the plane, and that's shown by a dashed line typically. Q is also not in the plane because if this line goes below the plane, then this part has to go above. It goes through the plane. Opposite rays. Opposite rays are 2 rays that go in opposite directions. So for example, if one ray was going this way, the other ray would go this way. And the trick is that they both have to start at the same point. So we're looking for a line that has a point in the middle and then a point on each side. Well, the only place in the picture that exists is right here. So there's one ray that goes up and there's one ray that goes down through the plane. The one going up starts at B, so B goes first, and then it goes to Q. The second ray has to start at B to be opposite, and going down, it goes down to L. Last vocabulary word, line segment. You have lots of options here. Also, it's part of a line. The only difference is when we named the lines up here, we had a line symbol on the top, arrows on both ends. The line segment has a line without arrows on the top. That's the line segment symbol. So line segment AC goes directly from A to C and stops. We could go LB, goes directly from L to B and then stops. We could go QB, goes directly from Q to B and then stops, and so on. Now the other thing that we need to know with this skill is how to name angles. And that's very, very important here. Naming an angle is one of the most important skills in geometry. So there's several various ways here. Let's pick some letters, A, W, and P. So notice, W is called the vertex. A and P establish where the rays go from the vertex. And when you name an angle, you start with the angle symbol, and you go around the angle using 3 letters. So here we go from A to W to P. Angle A, W, P. Now I went this direction, essentially, but you can also go the opposite direction. Angle P, W, A. The important part, though, is that the vertex, the point of the graph, is always in the middle, and you're using 3 letters. Now, in this particular case, though, you can also name it with 1 letter, angle W. Because there's only one angle here, angle W is sufficient for us to know which one it is. Most of the time, though, I prefer to use 3 letters so that I don't get confused about when I can use 3 and when I can use 1. Sometimes, if you're lucky, there'll be a number in the angle, like this. And if there's a number in the angle, it is actually enough to say angle 3. There's no doubt in my mind that if there's a 3 here and this says angle 3, that we will be talking about the same angle. So you can name it with 3 letters in either direction. Sometimes you can name it with 1 letter, and sometimes you can name it with a number. Now, an instance where you could not name it with 1 letter is if your picture looked like this. Now, if I were to say angle W, there's actually a little bit of confusion. Do you mean the top one, the bottom one, or the largest angle here? And to avoid that confusion, in a picture like this, you would be required to use 3 letters. Angle W would not be sufficient.